Your Highness, thank you for being with us today. It is such a pleasure to be interviewing you on a subject as important as the empowerment of women through higher education.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Ricardo for his kind invitation to take part in this year's event. I'm very pleased to have the chance to talk even through Zoom. So I'm awaiting your pleasure.
So I will start with the first question. It is a rather daunting task to talk about women's rights and women empowerment in traditional conservative Muslim communities. I think this is due to a common confusion between what is culturally inappropriate and what is religiously impermissible. According to you, what are the obstacles that hinder women empowerment in Saudi Arabia today? Are they mostly cultural or religious, and how can they be addressed?
You know, Saudi Arabia is not much different from the rest of the world. The lot of women worldwide historically has been, to say the least, very challenging for them. And according to the developments, whether social or political or scientific, whatever you want, there have been cases of encumberment, if you like, of women being able to participate fully as members of a society and contribute to the welfare of the society. This, I think, has nothing to do with religion. I think it's mostly a social phenomena that affected all societies. As some have developed, others have lagged a little bit behind. Saudi Arabia, thankfully, is in the middle of, how can I put it, a very exciting time for women to come out, if you like, of their shell. And that shell that had been imposed on them by society. And now, through legal means, through even social custom, new social custom, and government encouragement, women are coming out in full, as it were, and participating. I'll just give you one small figure as an example of that. When Vision 2030 was introduced back in 2016, by His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The aim, one of the principal aims of that vision was to empower women. And the statistics at that time, this is 2016, were that in the labor force, for example, women made up something between 5 and 7% of the labor force. And the ambition of Vision 2030 was to bring that percentage up to around 35% by 2030. Now we're in 2022. Already that number has been surpassed. So you can imagine how much development and empowerment has already occurred on all fields. And this is not something to do with social status or with higher education or whatever you like. But really, the women have jumped into the effort of bringing their own identity to themselves to full fruition. And this is just one example that I gave you about Saudi Arabia.
It is a very interesting example that you gave, and the numbers you have shared are very impressive. What you have called a shell, Your Highness, could be also referred could also be referred to by others as social conditioning. And as we might know, that social conditioning could be one of the most prominent obstacles that hinder women empowerment around the world. Women are conditioned to limit themselves to specific social roles and to define themselves accordingly. What role do formal education, higher education, and civic organizations play in redefining the social conditioning of women, especially in traditional Arab communities?
The key, in my view, to all of this is education. Once you allow women to participate fully in the educational field, and let me just add, as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, but I think even worldwide, that educational avenue, if you like, is still pending for some women in other places of the world. So it's still a work in progress, but the avenue or the first steps have been taken. And if you look at the statistics worldwide about women participating in higher education, for example, In Saudi Arabia, there are now more than 52% of college graduates are women. That makes the majority of the society. And so I think this is also true of other societies as well. And the social conditioning you refer to definitely occurred historically. Women being brought up with certain constrictions, whether it is in terms of conduct, in terms of location, in terms of gender mixing, et cetera, that conditioning definitely, I think, still affects some women. And even in a society like Saudi Arabia, which has, as I told you, opened up the doors now for women, there are still pockets of resistance, not just among men, but even among some women who see this opening up as perhaps a threat to something that they had been brought up with, a social conditioning that
Exactly.
they are not ready to give up on or to change their ways about. So
Exactly.
this is the big challenge, I think, for women worldwide, but also for Saudi Arabia.
True. It is very interesting to say that when we are talking about changing social conditioning, it is not only about changing the view of society towards women, but also changing the way women regard themselves and their roles within the society. You said, Your Highness, that according to you, education is key in making all the change. Affat University was established in 1999 by the Queen Affat Al Thunayyan Saud. May God rest her soul in peace. Queen Affat was not only the founder of education in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but she also founded the first private non-profit female-only university in the KSA. According to you, what was it that inspired Queen Affat to found this university? And how important is it today to ensure that women's access to education and the workplace is not limited?
Late Queen, my late mother, herself had to struggle for education. She was born actually in Turkey, just before the Ataturk revolution took place after the First World War. And she went to school in Turkey until the age of 16. And her major in school at that time was to become a teacher. By grace of God, by fortune, whatever you want to call it, a meeting took place between her and my late father, and they got married. And she came to the kingdom before that, of course, and they got married in Mecca. And so her ambition to become a teacher became a lifelong struggle to achieve that aim. And I think it was probably in 19 maybe 45, 46 or thereabouts, both of them decided to open a school in the city of Taif. That was to be, I remember it because I went to that school after I was born. The placard, as you enter the building of the school, says the model school of Taif for girls and boys. So imagine, yani, at that early stage of development in Saudi Arabia, already they had their eyes on education for women. And unfortunately, it was a bit too early for the society in Taif at that time to accept to send their girls to the school. So the women's side was shut down. To be later opened in 1955 in a school called Dar al-Hanan, which means, if I can translate it a bit, not literally, but liberally, the house of Al-Hanan. Maybe you're better at translating it than I am. Hanan is
Tenderness.
yes, and empathy, etc. And it was for girls. The school was. And it became a success. And before she died, God rest her soul, as you mentioned, she decided to turn that school into the Affat University for women when the government announced that colleges for women could be established. And as you said, it was the first privately funded university for women in the kingdom. And one thing I will add now, and not to be discriminatory towards men, the kingdom has come a long way there as well, and now has allowed for co-education, not just women separate from men. And so the EFET University now is open to men's enrollment as well.
Great.
The first time this year.
It is actually very inspiring to hear that a very influential woman, such as your mother, may God rest her, may God rest her soul in peace, was actually an entrepreneur as early as the 1940s, because she actually tried to open the first school, and she did not give up on her dream. She dreamt of being a teacher, but obstacles were awaiting her. She did not give up, and she actually went through all these struggles to make her dream come true. So it is very inspiring that as early as the 1940s we could already talk about entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia. And it is also inspiring because when we read the statement of EFET University, we read that it encourages creative entrepreneurship with national responsibility. This national responsibility that your mother was already defending as early as the 1940s. According to you, what is creative entrepreneurship with national responsibility? And what does that mean? How can we make sure that women are sufficiently equipped to become successful entrepreneurs today?
If you look at his history, particularly Islamic history, women's entrepreneurship was very much part and parcel of the development of Muslim society. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, before a revelation came down to him from God, married a businesswoman who traded between the holy city of Mecca and northern Arabia and what is called the Sham in Arabic, meaning Syria, Lebanon, etc., in present-day definitions. And her engagement in trade allowed for the Prophet to travel from Mecca, going to the north of Arabia, a more universal and a more cosmopolitan society that was part of the Roman Empire at that time, to engage with different peoples and different kinds. So that was just one example of how Muslim society not only had women who were entrepreneurs and dealt in business and participated in the social life there, but also when he moved to Medina after he receiving the revelation, women were also engaged in his setup of a social structure in Medina, whether in terms of medicine, as practitioners of medicine, and subsequent to his death, becoming judges during the four caliphs succeeding him, etc., etc. So the idea of entrepreneurship in social society in Islam is very much part and parcel of the makeup of society. And throughout Muslim history, if you look at the endowments that have been given to education, to medicine, to hospitals, even to make the making of pens and pencils in Muslim society, many of those foundations and trusts were established by women of those societies as history moved on. So it's not new that women in Islam become entrepreneurs and have that initiative to engage in trade, in medicine, even in politics. Sittana Aisha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, participated in the political structure of the Muslim society after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. And there are other examples of that kind throughout the history. And in Saudi Arabia, of course, with Vision 2030, opening up the doors of employment and opportunity for women from all strata of life, that has ignited, if you like, a fire of entrepreneurship among the ladies in Saudi Arabia, and the flourishing of different kinds of businesses in commerce, in e-commerce, for example, during COVID, was very much a revolutionary enterprise that engaged not just the men, but mostly the women. So yes, entrepreneurship was part and parcel of the makeup of Islam, and subsequently, of course, in the society in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you so much, Your Highness. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your enlightening answers. And thank you for being with us at TAKminds this year. It has been a great pleasure to close this year's forum with your presence.